Okay, look at Oligopoly, the Bennett Pocket Book of Knowledge. Um, right, one thing to note, there's a change between the new syllabus and old syllabus, so I'm going to compact this, and the last two slides belong to old syllabus. So new syllabus guys, ignore this, please. All right, so prior knowledge. I must know the assumptions of oligopoly. This is a visit to textbook to learn these if I do not know them. I must remind myself of the diagram of monopoly, and I should be aware of concentration ratio. Oligopoly firms fall between 50% and 80% on a concentration ratio. Of course, this is a rule of thumb. What to know? Well, some examples. Probably the best example is OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. However, they have lost some of their power recently. However, in the 1970s, they did control the oil market quite well, working as a cartel. Now, in the real life, some examples might be Adidas and Nike, Unilever and Procter and Gamble, or even Coca-Cola and PepsiCo. Now, let's look at the idea of collusion. Collusion is when we come together. Um, in terms of OPEC, they come together in the terms of formal collusion. They actually agree quantities that will reach the world market and thus control the price. This is called a cartel. This also happens illegally, for example, a drugs cartel. Um, then you have tacit collusion. Is the possibility that Coca-Cola is well aware of the pricing strategies of Pepsi, and they price their products accordingly. So they would be aware that if they were to increase their prices dramatically, Pepsi may get more market share and vice versa. So basically, we get a similarity of pricing through what is called tacit collusion. I observe what my competitor is doing and price accordingly. Um, Now, things to know with oligopoly, there is the incentive to cheat. Um, Even with a cartel, you hear it in the news with lots of drugs war because one of the drug lords does cheat on the other, and there are repercussions. But the thing is, if I cheat, I win market share and could become more powerful. And then there is the idea of price war. If I undercut my competitor in the oligopolistic market, for example, um, Pepsi tries to undercut the pricing in Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola can absorb a price war. So the chances that they will then reduce their prices and the other one will reduce their prices, and in the end, it may lead to one of the firms falling out of the market. But definitely there would be a loss of profits in the short run. Now, the oligopolist could collude with its competitors, the other oligopolistic firms, and decide to act as a monopoly. This is what OPEC, in theory, does. It agrees on a quantity. In this diagram is Q1, releases the quantity of Q1 onto the market at price 1. Then in share of their respective sizes, the oligopolistic firms, or with OPEC, the oil producing countries, would share the abnormal profit in terms of their market share. Prisoner's dilemma. They've arrested me for wearing this ridiculous hat. But not for wearing the hat, because somebody else was in a similar hat. Maybe my partner in crime. And they sit us in jail, and I could split on my partner and come out free. Or we could share a knock. Or, well, it's nice. There's plenty of videos on prisoners' dilemma. Now, in the world of business, there is game theory. It's also something you can read about. Game theory basically says that I can take a decision and I can maximize my profits. Or the other one is mini-max. It all depends on how I believe my competitor will follow me. Yeah. Now, because of this game theory, we kind of get the idea that if I raise the price, my competitor will smile because my customers would go to competitor. But if I drop the price, I could win new customers. But more likely, it will result in the price war. So, yes, I move on. Plenty to read. Oligopoly is fascinating. Well, I'm feeling happy. How about you? I mean, obviously, we base ourselves on a knowledge base, but a quick thinking back, I know that I can have formal collusion. I know I can have tacit collusion. I know that there is the incentive to cheat. I know that there is the possibility of a price war. I will know my assumptions and apply them to questions accordingly. Right, this is the kinked demand curve. It is old syllabus only. It is not in the new syllabus. So the diagram of kinked demand curve does not belong to first assessment 2022. If you are in the current new syllabus, please, you're wasting your time to watch this. Okay, so old syllabus, it's 2021. We will be the last ones to do the kinked demand curve. Now, kinked demand curve says there is only the now. It's true. I'm living in the now. I'm not living in yesterday. I'm not living in tomorrow. I'm living in the now. And the price rigidity is a characteristic of oligopoly. Kind of know the price of Coca-Cola versus Pepsi. Yeah, they don't change radically unless there's some kind of a promotional special on. I kind of know the price of my big industrial beers, the ones that belong to SAB Miller or InBev, and I kind of know that this is the price of a Beck's and this is the price of a Carlsberg, and they kind of are fairly rigid. Now, if one oligopoly firm raises price and competitor does not follow, they will lose market share. If one oligopoly firm drops price, then the competitor must follow or lose market share, so we would get the price war. So, if they raise the price, I don't follow. If they drop the price, I do follow. So basically, I will get to the left of the price, current price, the price of the now, my D curve will be elastic. And to the right of the price, it will be inelastic. So we get a demand curve that kinks at the current price of P. Now, since every demand curve has its own marginal cost curve, then in terms of profit max MC equals MR, there will be possibilities, different possibilities of different marginal costs that will lead to the rigidity at the sale price P. So this means that oligopolistic firms have the tendency to absorb cost changes. If the cost drops slightly, they won't necessarily put the price down. If the marginal cost raise slightly, they are not likely to put the selling price up. So we get price rigidity, which is a characteristic of oligopoly. So how does this kinked demand curve look? Well, it's a combination of two demand curves and their respective marginal costs. And as the name says, it kinks. I want you to search your memory, higher level students. Do I remember how the kinked demand curve looks? Let me put on my thinking cap. Thinking, 1, 2, 3. Now, obviously, when I draw this diagram, I have to be a little bit more cautious, yes, because I need it to, my starting point to be the P. Attention to detail is important. This particular kinked demand curve did take me about a minute of careful drawing. Okay, I put some highlighting on, but it's not necessary. So I'm drawing price versus quantity, price on the y-axis, quantity on the x-axis, as is the norm. I have taken a price P, and I've giving myself plenty of space, and I have drawn a point A. From point A, I take an elastic demand curve back towards the y-axis. And to the right of point A, I drop down in a pretty steep inelastic demand curve. Now, the marginal cost curve is around about half the gradient of the demand curve. So you will see underneath a point A, I have a point B, and I take my marginal cost curve up that belongs to the elastic portion of my demand curve. And then if I go to point C, across the x-axis, you will see the marginal revenue curve that corresponds to the inelastic portion of my demand curve. You will notice between B and C there is a vertical gap. Some people may leave it as dotted line. I have drawn a solid line. And now I know that MC equals MR is my profit max. So if I am an MC1, profit max is, when I take it down, is quantity Q at price P. Imagine my marginal cost drop from MC1 to MC2. Please observe MC equals MR still gives price P and quantity Q. Thus, price rigidity. Okay, a quick recap. Oligopoly. Looking at a concentration ratio of between 50 and 80% in a market as a rule of thumb. We will have two or more firms dominating the market. I like the example of Unilever and Procter & Gamble. Some might say Nike and Adidas. Some might say PepsiCo and Coca-Cola. What we have on the one extreme in the illegal market of drugs or the OPEC, we have a cartel. This is an extreme of formal collusion. Naturally, formal collusion, many countries have antitrust laws, competition laws, which make this practice illegal. And then the next one we have is tacit collusion, where we are colluding, but we are more colluding through observation. It cannot be proven that we are formally colluding. Then we have two options. We could go and act together as a monopoly, or we could be observing the characteristic of price rigidity in as per the Kinked Demand Curve. Remember, Kinked Demand Curve belongs to old syllabus. Thank you very much.